One day when I was about 7 or 8, my sisters and I got home from school, and my dad said, "Hey guys, get your stuff together. We're going to Disneyland." And I'm sure you can picture in your mind our reaction. We were jumping for joy and shouting and screaming and talking about all the characters we were going to see and all the rides we were going to go on. If that's what you're picturing, that makes sense, but that is actually not how we reacted. The way we actually reacted was, I actually don't really feel like going today. So at that time, we lived in Orange County, California, and we were about 20 minutes away from Disneyland, so we would go pretty often. And apparently, we got to this point where we were just kind of not impressed anymore by Disneyland. We just didn't feel like going. So my dad always brings that story back up now, and we laugh about it because he was so excited to surprise us that day with another trip to Disneyland, and we just weren't really impressed. Okay, let's contrast that to another story. So again, I was young, a kid, I don't really remember what age, but we had some friends come visit us from Japan. And we brought them to do all sorts of different things, and one day we brought them with us to Costco. We were doing a little Costco run, and it was so fascinating to see their reactions to Costco. They got in there and they were just jaw-dropped, mind-blown. They had never in their lives seen such a humongous store, ever. They just couldn't believe it. They were looking everywhere. Everything was just fascinating and amazing to them, and it was like they were seeing a different planet. And I remember they saw this big pack of markers that probably had maybe 75 to 100 markers in it, a big Costco-sized set of markers. And they were just hooked on that thing. They were so fascinated, and they bought that pack of markers to bring home with them. That was kind of their big trip souvenir. They just couldn't believe this huge pack of markers. And my sisters and I thought it was so funny how blown away they were by Costco. I mean, Costco is just so normal to us, and how blown away they were by this pack of markers. I mean, you came all the way to America from another country and you bought markers? That's what you wanted to get? It just blew our minds. But looking back, we understand, right, that for them, it was fascinating because it was completely different from their typical experience. They had never seen a store so humongous, and they had never seen a pack of markers that was so humongous. And as I was reflecting on these two different experiences, some lessons were coming to mind, which really is just that when we take things for granted, we lose our sense of wonder. But when we don't take things for granted, anything and everything can be wonderful to us. There's this really interesting concept called hedonic adaptation, which means that when positive emotional experiences happen in our life, typically, even though they shoot our positive emotions up, we tend to return back to kind of a baseline of happiness. So something really positive happens, like winning a championship or graduation or even marriage or even winning the lottery. And you get this big emotional spike, but typically after a while, you return to kind of your regular, normal baseline of happiness that you're usually at. And that can happen with negative events as well, like heartbreak, job loss, illness, things like that. And this isn't hard and fast science. It doesn't happen every single time. There are cases showing where people have really horrible traumatic things happen to them and they never return to their typical state of happiness. For example, with injury that debilitates you for the rest of your life, a lot of times people do end up in states of happiness that are lower than their typical for the rest of their life. So it's not hard and fast. This isn't always the case, but there is this general pattern of hedonic adaptation where when something emotionally powerful happens, we typically return to our normal state of happiness afterwards. And what's interesting about this is that even though that is the typical, there are things that we can do to make those emotional experiences on the positive side, to make them even more emotionally positive, so to increase the intensity of them and to prolong the duration of those emotionally positive experiences, to increase the duration that we feel those positive emotions. And there are things that we can do to more quickly and rapidly and effectively return to our baseline of happiness when negative things happen in our life. And one of the biggest things that we can do to increase those emotional experiences of positivity, have more positivity in our life, and to raise up our baseline of happiness and to overcome the negatives in our life is appreciation. The research behind appreciation and hedonic adaptation are fascinating. As we actively and intentionally savor and appreciate the positive things in our lives, our emotions are much more positive for a longer time, and we can increase our baseline of happiness. We don't even have to always return to this baseline that we've always been at. We can actually make that baseline get higher and higher and higher as we practice this active appreciation. So to me, I like to describe this as the wonder mindset. The wonder mindset, which is really just that if you can have a sense of wonder and awe and amazement for everything in your life, the big things, the small things, even the negative things, if you can learn to appreciate those too. If we can have that sense of wonder for everything in our life, we have so much more positivity. We glean so much more positivity from the natural positive things that happen to us, and we generate so much more positivity and therefore happiness in our lives. But what's so interesting about this is that happiness is not the only outcome of active appreciation. There's so much interesting research behind appreciation and all sorts of effects of it. For example, appreciation is associated with increased life satisfaction, job performance, athletic performance, academic performance, relationship quality, pro-social behavior, sleep quality, cardiovascular health. The list could go on and on. So active appreciation is a skill of high-performing and highly happy people. But it's not just about happiness, right? It's about our performance too. We can perform at higher levels if we learn to appreciate. So, how do we do this? How do we develop the wonder mindset? I'll give you some tips here. First, Dr. Paul Jenkins. He's a professional clinical psychologist who likes to refer to himself as a positivity psychologist. And he says that our minds are constantly comparing what currently is with what could be. So when we compare what currently is to something better, we feel depressed, right? If whatever currently is, if we compare that to something that's better than now, then we feel depressed. But when we compare what currently is to something worse, we feel grateful, we feel happy. So our options in this comparison is either feeling depressed or feeling grateful. And it truly is, as he puts it, it's all about what we decide to compare our current situation to. So for example, let's say you get in a car crash and you break your leg. I mean, it is an intense car crash and your car is totaled. It's done. You have two options, right? You could compare that car crash to that you wish that car crash never happened. So you can compare it to the scenario of that car crash never happening. And so you never got hurt and your car was never totaled. And naturally, if you do that, you'll feel depressed because you feel so sad that you have this broken leg and that your car is totaled and you have to get a new car and it costs you all this money, right? It's depressing. But you could also compare it to a negative possibility, something that's even worse. Like, what if I had died, right? And that automatically gets you into gratitude because I didn't die, I just broke my leg. And wow, I am so grateful for that. I could have smashed my head and just died. So thank goodness that that didn't happen. And now you're grateful and you're happy. So the situation hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is what you are comparing your situation to. So that's Dr. Paul Jenkins. I think that's a fascinating concept, and I invite all of us to apply that in every aspect of our lives, in our finances, in your relationships, in your job, in your fitness, in your health, your grades, your home. As we apply this concept of comparing our current situation to anything that is worse than our current situation, we will feel gratitude. We will feel peace and happiness in our current circumstance. So that's one tip. Another tip that I'll give you is to simply, in the morning, set a timer for 60 seconds, just 1 minute. Set a timer for 1 minute and think about how incredible and amazing the big and small things are in your life. I mean, the big and the tiny things. So think about how incredible your family is, and your health, and your education, and your cars, and just all sorts of big, cool things like that. And think about the tiniest things, like a pen. I mean, really think about how incredible a pen is. Think about if somebody were to say to you, I need you to create a pen from scratch. I mean, I would have no idea how to make a pen. I don't know what ink is made out of. I don't know how to form a plastic device to make a pen. I would have no idea how to do that. And there's all sorts of cool things that I can do with a pen. So as you kind of get into this mindset of just thinking for 60 seconds about the tiniest things, like a pen, and the big things, like your house and your family and your health and those amazing things, as you think about how amazing those things are and what they truly do add to your life, you can go into your day with the wonder mindset. And then finally, at the end of the day, set your timer again for 60 seconds. That's all it takes, 1 minute. Set your timer for a minute and just think about things that you are grateful for specifically from that day. So review your day and think about experiences that you had that day that you're grateful for. Interactions that you had, blessings that you received. Think about people that touched your life that day, or maybe knowledge that you gained. And think about challenges that you faced that day. And think about how you could frame those challenges in a grateful mindset. Think about what you gained or are gaining from those challenges. So think specifically over the day. Only take 60 seconds. It's so easy to overcomplicate these things. I promise if you just take 60 seconds, it'll be easy to apply this in your life, and the benefits will be huge. So let's not be like me and my sisters were back when we were kids, where the most incredible things like Disneyland become so unimpressive to us. Let's not be like that. Let's be like those friends from Japan who saw Costco and who saw a pack of markers and just thought those things were the most incredible things ever. As we have that mindset, we will have so much positive energy in our lives. Our motivation will skyrocket. We'll be able to use that energy for productive action, and we will thrive in so many ways. Thank you all so much for listening today. I truly appreciate it. Please make sure to share this podcast with 3 friends so that they can benefit from it too. And join me on Instagram and leave reviews on Apple Podcasts and like and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much. Let's go be high performing today.